How does geography affect species and biodiversity in certain regions? This is a question I've asked myself. So I had an excuse to talk about science, and there are many ways geography, in specific, mountains and oceans affect wildlife. Mountains, big, tall, majestic, just like me. They are very impactful on animals in what seem to be beneficial ways, as they are more environmentally stable, and this leads to the gathering of more species, and with that, higher biodiversity. Mountains also lead to speciation in a few different ways. Speciation isn't usually brought from long-lasting stable environments. Usually comes from changing ones. Samples are 1. Formation of mountains, 2. Volcanoes, 3. My childhood and 50% of others. Mountains are also physical barriers or bridges for speciation and migration. In one place, it can separate a place in the lowlands into two and then have the separated animals speciate, or it can cause bridges over the ocean that allow migration to occur. Mountains promote atmospheric circulation, and there are many instances of there being high biodiverse locations around mountain chains. The Andean chain in South America, which has the Amazon, which is insanely diverse. There's also evidence that the Himalayas, Zagros Mountains, and Southern Alps also promote biodiversity. Now on to oceans. So we're going to talk about the Wallace Line, which isn't actually a geologic structure. It's as imaginary as you think you'll be able to afford a home. It runs in the Lombok Strait in between the Indonesian islands in the south and through the Makassar Strait in between Borneo and Sulawesi in the north. Alfred Russel Wallace was the one who discovered the Wallace Line and actually independently discovered the theory of evolution other than Darwin. And yes, discovered. Jesus died for no reason. He did this by going to the Amazon first with his buddy, and after 4 years of extensive research, he decided to return. So, with thousands of specimens and documents, he headed home to England, only to have the boat sink and him to be left with 2 drawings of fish. This somehow didn't send him into a manic episode, and he instead went to Malaysia and Indonesia and doubled down by spending 8 years here, getting 125,000 specimens, 5,000 new to the west, and then proposed the what is now Wallace Line, as he noticed a difference in the separation of wildlife. Also during this trip, while feeling sick, just laying in bed in a hut, came up with a theory that debunks the most popular religion of this time. He then told Darwin, which he knew was very interested into the topic, and then Darwin took all the credit and is usually seen as the sole scientist on the theory of evolution. But Wallace wasn't even slightly resentful and is usually seen as Darwin's biggest fan. To the line. The line divides Oriental, so your giant pandas, tigers, and monkeys, and Australian animals, big spiders and snakes. The reason for this divide is because of a past supercontinent, the division of it. Pangaea was breaking apart. It was already broken off of Gondwana, which makes up the Australian animals on the Australian side of the line, which is on the Sahul Shelf. The Asian side is on the Sunda Shelf, and was on the other half of the split of Pangaea, being part of Eurasia. Before the split of Pangaea, they would have shared the same flora and fauna. If there weren't any other geographic barriers, there was no escape from the big spiders. The islands that don't have any way to have big animals like the tigers traverse the ocean from the mainland is because there was an ice age. As sea level was dropped, they just used a land bridge to cross over to the islands, on their side of the line and on their shelf. Hope you enjoyed my talk on what's more than a stretch so I could talk about science for Outdoor Ed. Goodbye.